Hi friends, we are so back today with another book video. I promised that after the honeymoon we would be back to our regular scheduled programming with some book videos, and I thought what is a more fun way to do that than with a 24-hour readathon? With how crazy the start of this year has been, I've not had an extra brain cell to dedicate to reading vlogs or getting through a lot of books, so my reading has severely slowed down and that makes me very sad. So I'm honestly looking forward to marathoning some books, checking some books off the TBR, and hopefully we're able to get to about 5 books in this video. I feel like that's usually my normal amount of books that I get to in a 24-hour readathon, so hopefully we can find something amazing. Overall, I would say that my TBR is pretty open today. I have done a fairly good job at reading all of the books from my April TBR at this point. The only 2 that I still have remaining are Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy, which I am 30% of the way through, and I have yet to pick up Foxglove by Adalyn Grace. But I do have this as an audiobook through my library, so I think we can definitely get to this one today. Since I'm already 30% of the way through Girl Abroad, I think we'll start with this first. But from there, I have just majorly been in a romance mood. So we will probably be sticking to the books that you see here. I did just recently receive Nora Goes Off Script by Annabel Monaghan and Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. So those are very high contenders, but I do have some TBR veterans that I wouldn't mind getting to as well. For our structuring of the 24-hour readathon today, previously I've broken it up into 2 days where I do 12 hours each day. But to be transparent, we only landed from our honeymoon 2 days ago, and that was like a 22-hour travel day. So trying to be reasonable, I don't think that I can actually read for 12 hours today and tomorrow. So we're gonna do the timer method, which I haven't done before, but this means that I can allow myself to take plenty of breaks, not have to worry about how that's affecting my reading pace. I'll just pause our timer and restart whenever I'm ready to read again. Since I am 30% of the way through Girl Abroad, I feel like I can give you guys a good sense of the synopsis before we continue reading on. It's taken me a while to pick up this book because I have heard negative sentiment around our female main character, Abby. I will say at this point, the book has gone a lot better than I expected. I actually think the plot is a little bit more interesting than originally it was sold to me to be as. So our FMC Abby is 19 years old and receives the opportunity to study abroad in London for a year. All is well and good. She's found a house with 3 roommates that she can stay at while she's there for the year. It's in a really nice area. It's close to school. She thinks that this is going to be perfect. However, whenever she gets there, instead of rooming with 3 girls like she thought she was, she's actually rooming with 3 boys. And with a bunch of college students staying in close proximity with one another, there's a house rule that there's no fraternizing between the roommates. Which is a good rule for Abby to have, because I swear every character we're introduced to in this book, she's immediately in love with them and thinks that they're the sexiest person alive. So that's kind of like the plot that I've heard from others, and I think where some of the annoyance does end up coming into play with this book. I have a feeling that there's going to be a love triangle introduced. Should she be with either of the guys? Probably not, given the situation. But what I actually think is surprisingly interesting about the book is she is a European history major. And while she's at an estate sale with her roommates, she ends up picking up this portrait of this mystery woman. And that ends up being her research project for a paper she's going to write for one of her classes. And so surprisingly, a lot of this book is about researching this painting, spending time in the library, trying to connect with art curators to learn more about the artist. And that is not something that I've heard anyone talk about before whenever discussing this book. And I would actually say at this point, I find it to be decently interesting. I have a feeling that this book is going to end up being a little bit chunkier than it needs to be. It looks like it's 419 pages, which seems fairly long for a YA new adult romance. Currently I'm on chapter 17, which is page 134. So we still have a decent amount of the book left. Luckily, this does read very quickly. So my Kindle says that I only have 3 hours and 41 minutes left. With me having the Kindle edition through Kindle Unlimited, I will probably be reading this on my Kindle, but let's go ahead and hop on in. With 20 hours and 17 minutes remaining on the timer, we have finished our first book. In a shocking turn of events, I really ended up liking this. I went into this with very low expectations, which sometimes is the best way to go into a book. I think giving into hype sometimes is a trap that a lot of readers fall into. With social media, book talk, booktube, there's a lot of overhyping that goes into books nowadays. So this one honestly took me pleasantly by surprise. I won't give my rating until the end because honestly, I'm stuck between two ratings, but all in all, the rating is much higher than I thought it would be. We definitely really leaned into history within this book and figuring out the history of this mystery woman. She was a maid and connected to this very salacious family in British society. And that story ended up being pretty complex and interesting and had a few twists and turns that I wasn't expecting. For a long while in this love triangle, I didn't know who she was gonna end up with, and I didn't even know who I wanted her to end up with. I actually liked both of these guys. They were very different. They kind of brought out different parts of her, so they weren't really comparable, but ultimately, I think she did end up with the right one. But all in all, I had a good time. I think previously, whenever I discussed this book, I said that it was YA. There is some spice in this book, so definitely not YA. I honestly would give it like 3 out of 5 chili peppers. So definitely a bit of an adult romance, but I can't complain. I had a really good time with this one. Okay, so obviously we still have loads of time left on the timer. We've only gotten about 3.5 hours through. As I mentioned previously, it's not like I'm trying to do a full 12 hours today. I think if we could get like 8 hours in today, that would be a really good start. So I think I am gonna go into Foxglove since I do have the audiobook for this. This is book 2 in the Belladonna series. This is actually just following the story from book 1. We're following the same characters. We've had a new character introduced at the end of book 1, but I'm not going to say who so that we're not talking spoilers. But Belladonna is a gothic fantasy romance where our main character Signa has had a pretty tough life. Throughout her whole life, she's been surrounded by death, and death has followed her because her parents passed away when she was a baby, and she's just kind of been passed around to different family members. She hasn't been treated very well, and we're first introduced to her with one guardian who quickly passes away, and she's sent to live with a new family at Thorn Grove. Once she gets to Thorn Grove, a ghost finds her very quickly and lets her know that there's a mystery to be solved, and that's where the plot of book 1 really takes off, where Signa and Death, who is personified, are investigating this mystery. With the goal of about 8 hours read today, there's absolutely no way I'm going to finish this book. It is about 450 pages, and I think the audiobook is about 14 hours long. So we should be able to get a decent chunk of the way through this and probably finish it up tomorrow. Right now, I'm getting some very good light from outside. It looks really nice in the camera, but there are some storm clouds brewing, and I think a little bit of a rainstorm would be great to cozy up and read this book in. We are many hours later. I just reached chapter 22, which is halfway through Foxglove, and that takes us to 17 hours and 25 minutes being left on the timer. So that means that we've read just over 6.5 hours today, which I feel like is pretty good going. While this isn't the 8 hours I was hoping for, I do think I am tapping out for the evening. We've given it a good go today, so I think this is a good start. And I'm glad we were able to get halfway through this book. This picks up exactly where Belladonna ends off. We enter into quite the situation, quite the scandal, and Signa is now forced into another mystery, another murder to solve, essentially. We're getting a lot more with her cousin Blythe. We're even getting some chapters in her POV, which I think is interesting because I'm pretty sure book 3 in the series is all in Blythe's POV. So I feel like we're getting a good introduction to her story, and I can kind of see where this one is going. That's probably as much as I'm going to talk about this plot because I don't want to give too much away. I wouldn't say that much of this plot has been overly shocking. I have a feeling I know where the story is going to end up, but I am enjoying my time nonetheless. This series, while it is a fantasy, I wouldn't say that the world itself is that fantastical. It's just some of the elements, such as death being represented, that give it that magical element, and some of the abilities that we learned Cigna to have is kind of the fantastical elements. This is a very easy world to understand because it really just feels like 1800s England. So if you're new to fantasy or you like books with the historical aspect, I think this is a great series to pick up. I feel like it's very approachable. But so far so good. Feels good continuing on a series because it has been so long since I read Belladonna. While this book doesn't do like too much of a recap, I feel like it was still pretty easy to slip into. And I definitely think I'll be continuing on with book 3 afterwards. I'm pretty sure I gave Belladonna a 4 stars and I feel pretty similarly to this one. So not my favorite series in the world, but I definitely think it is worth the read. People. As you would have seen, it's the next day. I've just been listening to Foxglove as I've gotten ready for the day. So I've gotten an extra 10% of the way through. Obviously no major updates from there other than the story is getting a little bit more sad than I would have anticipated. One of our characters is really letting me down at the moment, so not great news there. But since I do have the audiobook and I do enjoy the audiobook narrator, I am going to just go ahead and continue listening to the book while I head to the gym in an effort to kill 2 birds, 1 stone. Side note, not related to books, I am very sad and scared for this day. I am re-entering my weightlifting bulking season, and this is my first leg day back, and I hate leg days. So if you see me looking like a shell of a human being for the rest of the day, now you know why. Finished our second book of the video with 14 hours, 14 minutes remaining. So with this time, I feel like if we play our cards right, we could get 3 more books read, which would be fantastic. Final thoughts on Foxglove. Again, I really enjoyed this book. So far, so good on this readathon. I had the expectation that I was going to like this because I did like Belladonna, but because of the gothic element, I didn't know if I was really picking this up at the right time of year. Initially with this series, I thought this would be better read in the winter time. However, this book actually takes place during late spring, and it is an extremely atmospheric book, so the weather is discussed quite a bit. So this turned out to be the perfect time to read this in late April, early May. I was impressed by how well the author was able to set up the next book. I saw some reviews on Goodreads saying like this was so clearly a bridge book, but that doesn't mean that this book didn't have any plot. I think it utilized the remaining story to tell of Cigna's journey while bringing in another character storyline that we can continue on and is just as interesting in book 3. So overall, I'm really impressed with this book. I will definitely be continuing on the series, and looking ahead on Goodreads, it looks like there's a little holiday novella coming out later this year called Holly, which I will definitely be picking up as well. As I mentioned previously, saving the ratings till the end, but I think you guys can imagine that this is a pretty highly rated book by me. And now it is time to choose our next read. Okay, thinking of book number 3, I am definitely tired right now. My eyes feel sleepy. I'm not feeling super motivated by any means. So I'm wanting light, easy, probably a little bit fluffy. I don't know if I need anything that's gonna absolutely change my life right now. So it's definitely pointing me towards my romance TBR. There's quite a few different places I could go with this, honestly. I feel like my romance TBR and me right now are like this. I would love to pick up literally all of these books as soon as possible. I am very much wanting to get to my most recent purchases. Nora Goes Off Script and Ready or Not. These are both on my spring summer TBR. This is an accidental pregnancy trope. I've heard it compared to Out on a Limb by Hannah Bodum Young, which was a 5-star read for me. And then Nora Goes Off Script is written by Annabel Monaghan, which her first book that I read, Summer Romance, I gave 5 stars. So literally couldn't go wrong with either of these, I feel like. I will also shout out that Nora Goes Off Script is so bloody short. It is 257 pages. I mean, how do you beat that? Okay, anyways. I've been dying to read You With a View by Jessica Joyce. I would love to get to this book. Again, I read Jessica Joyce's first book, 5 stars. So can you tell I'm just trying to chase another 5-star read? I really don't know how to feel about Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I kind of feel an obligation to read this right now because I do have this also as an audiobook through my library. It's also on Kindle Unlimited, so I would be just ingesting this in as many forms as possible. I'm really 50-50 with Abby Jimenez. I've given 2 of her books like a 4-star rating. I enjoyed them. And then I gave 2 of her books like a 2-star rating and really didn't enjoy them. So this book is kind of make it or break it for me. And I know that she is such a beloved author. This is such a beloved book that I'm just kind of scared of not liking this and ruffling some feathers. So I feel like with the other 3 that we've pulled, this is probably like last on my list. There's a lot of other good books right here that I would love to get to, but I do think that these are our top 3 contenders. I mean, do we just read all of them? Do we just really hardcore marathon some romance books today? I don't know. I do generally like to switch up genres maybe a little bit whenever doing these reading vlogs. So I think I'm gonna start with Nora Goes Off Script. I just don't feel like I have a lot more to give for today. And this book is so short. I think I can easily commit to this and getting this done. Knocking a few more hours off of her timer, I would have to think at 250 pages that I could read this in 4 hours or less, and that would take us to about 10 hours, which seems reasonable for splitting between 2 books. Let's go ahead, hop into Nora Goes Off Script, and I will give you guys a check-in once I have a better sense of what this plot's going to be. It is storming so badly, so I'm hoping I'm catching you guys at a time where the thunder has calmed down and we're just having some rain. Good news, we are about halfway through Nora Goes Off Script. Even better news is that this book reads so ridiculously easy. I felt this with her other book, Summer Romance, but I did read a large portion of that through an audiobook, not physically. The pace at which you can read these words is insane. She does not spend a lot of time overly writing. I say that in a way if she doesn't make things overly complicated. She doesn't spend too much time with making things like super lush and flowery, but I still really do enjoy her writing style and sentence structure, even though it is on the more simplistic side. And to give you guys a little time update, we have 12 hours and 35 minutes left. I think I've been reading this for like less than 2 hours. The plot of this book is a little bit weird. At first, I wasn't fully sold on our love interest. We follow Nora. She's our FMC. She is a divorcee, mom of 2, and she wrote a screenplay sharing the story of her husband leaving her. And that was picked up, made into a screenplay, and they filmed parts of the movie at her house, which is where we kind of meet her on the first day of filming. And the actor, Leo, who's playing her ex-husband, can you guys hear all the animals outside? It's so loud. Okay, I think they're done. Just Florida things. Okay, now I lost my train of thought. The actor who's playing her husband, Leo, is a little bit strange. Shows up with his Airstream. He doesn't want to stay in a hotel with the rest of the crew, so he stays in an Airstream on her property during filming. And he just like comes and goes into her home as he pleases without asking, helping himself to her liquor and sleeping on her patio throughout the night. Like, this guy is a little bit strange. You can tell he's kind of going through something, and he was giving very much like troubled alcoholic vibes at the beginning, which had me a little bit concerned. You know, he's going through some things personally. He's kind of just enchanted with this small town life. And at first I felt like he was kind of similar to her ex-husband, because her ex-husband was just fucking terrible. Let me just say that. Very much a taker in every sense of the word, in every sense of the relationship, offered literally nothing to her or the children. And I was worried that Leo was giving similar vibes. I think he's just a little bit misunderstood. Now we're seeing him just place himself in the family dynamics, and those moments are honestly just so funny to me, where after filming wrapped and he decided to stay a few extra days, he was just like, so what are we gonna do today? They ended up going into town and they went into this homeware store, and he bought her some new sheets because he knew that her sheets were crap. And then he goes, do you like your coffee mugs? And she goes, I do. He says, I do too. He wanders around collecting small items until he finds the towels. We need new towels. Don't even start to argue. So he'll use the word we whenever it is discussing her things. And then he'll also like refer to the kids and their family schedule, or like what they're making for dinner. He'll just insert himself into, which is just honestly really funny. I am curious to see where this goes, because the entire premise of this relationship is built on it being temporary. Even though his time with them just keeps getting extended, I do feel like this has an expiration date. I am enjoying this in the meantime. I do just really like her writing. So I've had her next release that's coming out this summer. It's a love story on my TBR and on my radar for quite a while, and now I'm even more excited to pick that one up. But that is my check-in, and I guess we're like halfway through this readathon, basically. 2.5 books done. We'll definitely be able to wrap up this book this evening, and then that's where I'm probably gonna call it for the night. The bullfrogs and animals outside have now gotten so loud that I'm gonna get a little up close and personal with the camera so that you can actually hear me. But we just finished Nora Goes Off Script. Finished it in record time because we still have 10 hours, 44 minutes left on the clock. I was actually really shocked with the second half of this book. We took some twists and turns. We had some ups and downs. I was real worried for a minute on how we were gonna circle back on this situation. I am happy with where we ended off. Because of the up and down nature, I'm really not sure how I'm gonna rate this, because I really loved the first half. The middle really wasn't my favorite, and then the ending, the last few chapters, took us back home. So really wasn't expecting this for 250 pages, but credit to the author. I am impressed. I will be buying her next book. As it's 10:30 at night, this is definitely where I will be ending for the day. I don't know if I have time to continue this for this weekend, so I might be seeing you guys like next week whenever I actually have time for 10 hours and 44 minutes left of reading. I also totally don't know what book I'm in the mood for now after this, so maybe a couple days off reading will give me an idea of what I'm actually in the mood for. guys for not updating the vlog throughout today and reading Longshadow. I don't know what happened with the time, but I swear there was not 24 hours in today. It was more like 10 hours. The day just flew by. So I spent today starting and finishing Longshadow, which is book 3 in the Regency Fairy Tales, which starts with Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I started this with about 10 hours and 45 minutes left on the timer. We now have 6 hours and 7 minutes left. So that will definitely leave us with a full book to finish tomorrow, and hopefully we won't have to rush while finishing that one up. I think this is probably my least favorite book of this video so far, but that doesn't mean that it was bad. All of the stories within this series have a fantastical element, and I would say the purpose of them is to try and provide commentary on society with a whimsical spin to it. So for instance, with the first book, Half a Soul, our main character, Dora, is living with half a soul, doesn't feel emotions the same way that the rest of society does. And kind of the theme we're learning through that book is that even if someone feels something differently, that doesn't mean that they're any less of a person. It's giving neurodivergent representation with that book. Now, I would say that this book had the weakest commentary on life. I really think it was just trying to give some LGBT representation. Our FMC in Longshadow is introduced at the very end of book 1, Half a Soul. However, it's many, many years later and she's much older. And unfortunately, young women in their society are being killed, and it looks like black magic. So she has to partner with a magical being to try and figure out what's going on and why these young women are being taken. The good thing about these books are that they're pretty short. I don't think any of them are over 300 pages. It's very approachable writing if you do like that Regency time frame. I definitely think you could just read Half a Soul and stop from there. I don't think continuing on with the rest of the series is that necessary, because Half a Soul I think is just such a more well-rounded story. But alas, I feel like I'm saying a lot of words but not making very much sense. So that is probably my cue to stop talking for the evening and catch you guys tomorrow morning. Hi friends, good morning. Today is going to be the last day of the readathon, even if it's the last thing I do. And funnily enough, I have quite a few things I need to do today, but we are prioritizing the last 6 hours and 7 minutes of this readathon because this has been going on for too long. I'm pretty sure this is day 4, but it's kind of all starting to blend together. Ideally, I wanted to do this like 3 8-hour days. That was my ideal situation in my mind. However, that is not how things have transpired. I have quite a few errands I need to run today. I need to go to the gym, I need to get my nails done, and I need to be done with this readathon by 6 p.m. because I have book club. So I know I didn't really talk about the book that I picked yesterday. I kind of just hopped on into it because yesterday was a very similar feeling day to today. I had wanted just a quick little fantasy book that I could get through, but I know for a fact that I'm gonna want to hop back to romance. And does this book pick make the most sense with my physical TBR and the books that I know have been sitting on there for so much longer? No. Are we picking it anyways? Yes. We're gonna be reading Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I wanted to read this since this readathon started, but I only got this like a week ago. But you know what? Who cares? Live your life. Read the books that you want to read. Screw the TBR. I really want to get to this because this is by far a 5-star prediction. It's an accidental pregnancy trope, but I've heard it gives very similar vibes to Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I'm pretty sure this has like a very strong women's fiction vibe to it. I know that pregnancy is like heavily discussed through this, so if that's something that you're not interested in or is a trigger for you, this would not be the book for you. However, that's something that I'm willing to read about and not turned off by. The audiobook is also on Spotify for free, so I do want to do some of this reading physically. I definitely know I'm probably going to want to be annotating this, but to make sure that we actually get through this readathon, I will be using the audiobook as I'm running around today. Looks like this is 362 pages, so not too bad. We'll definitely be able to get through this within the 6-hour period, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're back on our romance grind, and isn't this cover just absolutely beautiful? This is my first time reading from this author, but all of her covers are so pretty. So if I like this, I will definitely be buying more from her. It is many hours later, and we're about 75% of the way through this book. Did just want to give an update that I am really liking this story. I think this is hinted at the back of the book, so I really hope this isn't a spoiler, but this really isn't a love story between Eve and the baby's father, which I think is a very cool spin on the surprise pregnancy trope, because generally it is with the baby's father. While the father has been supportive, a bit conflicted, but overall I would say supportive, there's another love story that you come to know, which is so sweet and amazing. At the very top here, it says, a surprise pregnancy leads to even more life-changing revelations, and this heartfelt, slow burn friends to lovers romance. Even at 75% of the way through, our characters still aren't together. So if you're not someone that likes too much spice, or you enjoy slow burn, I think this is a great story to enjoy. At this point, I am desperate for them to get together, and I thought it was gonna happen 1 or 2 times, and still nothing has happened, but the feelings are definitely growing. Our love interest is just like the sweetest golden retriever energy you have ever met. He is just such a sweetheart, so selfless, does so much to support Eve, and at points has kind of been the only person there for her. With the conflicted nature of the father, he hasn't been overly involved. Her best friend has been struggling with her own fertility journey, and at some points couldn't be there for her as well. Her parents have passed away, her family's not that involved, so there have been a lot of points where our FMC feels very much alone, and he has been such a good person for her to lean on, and was one of the only people whenever she first shared the news that was genuinely excited for her. So like every single one of my favorite moments of this book have been involving him and just his selfless nature. So I am very happy to say that this book is going very well. I do still need to finalize getting ready for the book club. I need to like do my hair, spruce up my makeup. So I think I'm going to listen to the rest of this for as much as I can before my Spotify hours run out, get ready, and hopefully we get this finished before book club happens. Because if we don't, I fear I'm gonna be on like page 350 and only have 10 pages left, and that would be just a horrible stopping point. Let's go ahead and power through the rest of this book. Done, but I do have like 13 pages left. I absolutely don't have time to read these pages before leaving, but am I gonna finish these pages before leaving? Yes, yes I will. So let's finish Ready or Not. Okay, so now I absolutely have to go, but this book is so cute and we will debrief later. It's the next day and time to wrap up this 24-hour readathon. And dare I say, we kind of crushed this one. Got through 5 books, and I can definitely attest to that doing it the timer method, allowing yourself some breaks, allowing yourself the opportunity to sleep, definitely means you get the most amount of reading done. I think we definitely did over 1,000 pages, but I guess I could do the math and check. Let me just gather all me books. The fact that I read one more book than this is astounding to me. The first book we read was Girl Abroad, which was 425 pages. We then read Foxglove, which was 449 pages. Nora Goes Off Script was our third book. This was a little shorty, but still 257 pages. I then read Longshadow on my Kindle. The epilogue ends on page 266. And finally, Ready or Not was 362 pages. So that takes our grand total to, holy crap, 1,759 pages. Yeah, this is definitely the best 24-hour readathon I've ever done. It's always crazy at the end of a 24-hour readathon to see how many books you get through. It is so satisfying getting through such a large chunk of your TBR in one go. So I would love to maybe do these monthly at some point. At least I would like to commit to every other month, because it just makes getting through your monthly TBRs so much easier, actually dedicating the time to read the books properly. So now that I've hyped up 24-hour readathons enough, let's actually go through and give our ratings. I was very pleasantly surprised by Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy. I definitely had some preconceived negative notions whenever I went into this book. I'm going to be a little bit annoying with this rating, and I'm going to give it a 3.75. It was so close to a 4. I just don't think there's like enough depth overall to actually justify a 4. But where I think this book really shines is that there's a good amount of plot in here. And honestly, the love triangle didn't bother me at all. It took me so long to actually figure out which guy I wanted her to end with, and I think in the end she made the right choice, so I really didn't have anything to complain about. There's definitely some spice in here, so this is adult, but since our main character is 19, I think this is great for anyone in that like 17 to 23 age range. Definitely if you're in college, I think this would be great to pick up since she's doing a study abroad program. But all in all, I would actually recommend this, and I will definitely pick up more by Elle Kennedy in the future. Next, I continued on with the Belladonna series and picked up Foxglove, which is book 2. Oh, I think this book does a really good job of continuing on Cygna's story from book 1 while introducing our next main character that we're going to be focusing on in book 3. I'm definitely excited to see where book 3 picks up. I think this book ends off on enough of a cliffhanger that you do want to continue on. I was shocked that this actually was a great seasonal read in the late springtime. That all being said, this book definitely didn't change my life. I don't think it made the hugest emotional impact, and for me, I need a deep emotional attachment to our characters for me to enter into the 5-star range. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give Foxglove a 4 stars, which I believe is what I gave Belladonna as well. And I could definitely see the same for book 3. I think this is like a 4-star series for me. I would definitely end up recommending it. It's a cozy, gothic fantasy vibe, but I think it's very approachable, not a complex magic system that you need to be worried about, but it's also not characters that I'm going to be thinking about forever and ever. Okay, moving on to Nora Goes Off Script by Annabel Monaghan. This is such an easy read. Like we mentioned when going over the page numbers, 250 pages. This is something you truly can get through in a day. If you're someone who has trouble paying attention, maybe is just getting back into reading, can sometimes find the longer books intimidating, go ahead and just pick this up. Almost anything by Annabel Monaghan I think is in that lower page range. This isn't my top tier book from her. I do think Summer Romance is stronger, but I did go ahead and give this a 4 stars. I do think she did a clever way of bringing her characters back together after the 3rd act conflict. What the conflict was caused by really actually took me by surprise, but I don't think I loved our male main character enough. Whenever he was first introduced to us, I really did question, how are we going to turn this guy around? He did not have almost any qualities that I personally find attractive. So I think our author maybe dug herself into a little bit too big of a hole for us to fully come around and have that full circle moment. But all in all, if you go into this from more of a women's fiction type of lens, I think these are great books and definitely something I would add to your spring-summer TBR. Next was Longshadow by Olivia Atwater. Unfortunately, this is our worst book of the video. I went ahead and gave this a 3 stars because honestly, thinking back to it, even though I read this 2 days ago, I'm like, what the hell even happened in this book? Like, it was a murder mystery with fairies based in London, but like, what was the point of the book? I feel like we can do more in our stories. I feel like since she has such a basis in the other 2 books in the series of making comments on society, we could have done more to beef up that plot line. Honestly, at this point, I would say you could just pick up Half a Soul, the first book in this story, read a very whimsical, unique take on a fantastical romance, and also receive the society commentary with some neurodivergent representation. And I don't know if there's really a full need to continue on with the series from there. And finally, ending off with a bang, we have Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This was such a sweet and wholesome read. As I made the connection before, this is very similar in feeling to Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. If you love just that sweet, wholesome love, where you just want to go up and hug our MMC because he's the kindest soul ever, these are your books, y'all. The only thing I would say to be aware of with this one is if you are sensitive to pregnancy, because that is truly the whole plot line that we're following within the story. But all in all, I did love this, so I ended up giving it a 4.5 stars. I absolutely cannot wait to read more by Cara Bastone. I know she had a recent release with Promise Me Sunshine. I do think that one is going to be a bit more sad. However, I really did enjoy her writing style. I think she's a great mixture of Annabel Monaghan, Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez. She's in the same vein as all of those authors. There's only one spicy scene in this one, so if you are sensitive to spice, this is something that's not going to be offensive to you. Something all in all, almost anyone could pick up and enjoy. So that is our wrap up for the 24-hour readathon. I think this was a very successful time. Given the fact that the lowest rated book was a 3 stars, really, I honestly couldn't ask for more. Lots of things in that 4-star range, which is a huge relief to me because I feel like I was stuck recently with a lot of 3 and 3.5 stars. And those ratings are just annoying because you're not really loving those books, but they're not also terrible. I needed some books that would re-spark my love and enjoyment of reading, and I think some of these books really did do that. So with that being said, this is where I will love you and leave you, but thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe before you leave so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye guys.